What is an intellectual?
I guess the best definition I've heard is from Hayek. He says it's a second-hand dealer in ideas. That the vast majority of intellectuals don't really originate any ideas, but they peddle ideas that other people have originated. Um, and that gives them a great deal of freedom because ideas are so malleable, words are so malleable. Reality is not malleable. And so they can believe in all sorts of things which have no realistic possibility and which have failed time and again in history. But because they know how to rephrase it and repackage it, they can just keep right on going.
Irving Kristol told you a couple of years ago, or a lot of years ago, that the worst thing about running for office is that you might get elected.
Oh, absolutely, and he was absolutely right.
How much did you think about running?
Uh, I thought about it only until I talked with the first professionals. I mean, Senator Hayakawa wanted me to run for the Senate in California. And out of respect for him, I agreed. I thought it never crossed my mind before or since. But out of respect for him, I talked to political professionals. And these people would talk to me about 2 minutes, and they would say, you're not what politicians are made of. My late sister, who probably knew me better than anyone in the world, said, "Tommy, I can't even imagine you in politics. Can't even imagine." And once, and while my wife was telling a friend, Tom wouldn't last 20 minutes in Washington, and he said, "Oh yes, he would." No, I'm not saying he'd last an hour. You know?
Why?
Because I say what I mean, and that doesn't help you a lot in politics.
Show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. In politics, I wanted to talk about the bad incentives that are instilled in politics because today, not today, at the time I'm recording this video, I just did a video about the French election, about how undecided women seem to trust Biden more than Trump. And this idea keeps spinning in my head over and over and over again. It's a Thomas Sowell quote. I don't remember what book of Thomas Sowell that I read that I came upon this insight, but I feel like I need to share it with you all today. And the quote is: people fall in love with the desirability of a policy over the feasibility of a policy. We like how a policy sounds, but when it executed and the results tells us what the result is, because end of the day, you can have a theory in reality. Oh, so you can have a theory, but if you test your theory in reality and reality shows you that your theory is wrong or your theory is bad, then you must accept that your theory is bad. But you saw from the intro, this is why smart, capable people do not go into politics. Because politics, I don't know where this incentive came from, but you cannot be honest. You can't tell people what you actually think. Because when you do, people will get mad about you. They'll cherry pick and only focus on that one thing you said. You could be 90% perfect. You could be a 90% perfect candidate, but someone won't vote for you because of the 10% of what you said, even though overall you're a net positive for everybody in the country. And Trump and Biden synonymize that perfectly. On the policies, Trump's policies give a better outcome that most Americans can benefit from. While Democrats, they pick and choose and only really benefit people of their coalition, which is the black woman, right? LGBTQ, whatever, however they market it. Hey, these are the people who benefit from our equation, and everyone else has to suffer to help them. And this brings me back to a quote I wanted to iterate here. Some Americans will never appreciate America until after they have destroyed it. And then they begin to suffer the consequences. And this is the like first order thinking that I keep remembering about, it seems like, in politics. There's a book I once read called Think Fast and Slow. And the idea of the book is that many people are very reactionary. AKA, hey, you hear some fear mongering about Project 2025. Oh my God, I can't vote for Trump. And they'll vote for Biden. That was the 2020 election. The 2020 election is the result of a group of people in America. This is what happens when you think fast, AKA you're reactionary, instead of being more deliberate, AKA thinking slow. Hey, really sit there and process the information, right? Is Biden really the best pick? We had questions about his age since 2020. Is his policies really good? Did I really do my research and see, okay, why would someone not want to vote for Biden based on this policy? Why do people think Build Back Better is actually going to make the economy worse? If America, this is my argument, if the American voter was a lot more, let's say, deliberate in how they voted and focused mostly on the outcomes that would affect them personally and not necessarily the vehicle or the personalities surrounding the policy, I'll argue many people would have voted for Trump. Because to me, Trump comes across as the most honest candidate. He don't like, he is exaggerator, sure, but who doesn't? It's baked in with Trump. Trump would like to exaggerate. I build the best buildings. If you're a guy, like, who would push a policy they don't think is the best? Like, make it make sense. Telling me Build Back Better, and then you come back and you see 2021 compared to 2021, groceries up 30, 40, 50%. Cost of living is out of control. Now you have to make $120K a year. Before 2021, where $100K would have been fine. Your lifestyle is taking a hit due to inflation. And many economists warn about inflation. Government benefits, inflation is the cost for government benefits. That is a truism that no amount of government, no amount of liberal democratic policies can get away from. Here's this clip I want to show you of Thomas Sowell explaining why the government only really succeeds when it fails. Let's take a look.
Government failure, basic economics. Quote, the imperfections of the marketplace have led many to see government interventions as necessary and beneficial. Franklin Roosevelt would have said so,
yes,
and many since. Yet the imperfections of the market must be weighed against the imperfections of the government. Explain that.
It always amazes me that people think that if you say the market is imperfect, that means the government must step in. And I think, we're so much more rational in sports. I mean, when Babe Ruth went up there and struck out, they didn't say, we got to send in a pinch hitter for him next time at bat. Because who knows, the pinch hitter might strike out, and he's not as likely to hit a home run as Babe Ruth is.
As you see, it's this idea of equal outcomes. This is the basis for a lot of what the government wants to push on people, right? And this would kind of really spark this idea of me processing this feasibility versus desirability, right? This is the More Perfect Union. It's a left-wing account that I follow just to see, hey, what people on the other side are thinking about an issue, right? The leftist coalition that won in France wants to implement policies including raise the minimum wage, lower the age of retirement to 60, build 1 million affordable homes, freeze the price of basic goods like food and energy, invest in infrastructure, and more. Now, let's see the reactions. It's insane how many people see this and consider it extreme or far left, when really it should be the basic function of government. This is a desirability argument, right? When did we decide that the government should be a personal bank and vehicle of power solely for corporations? False. The government should be a referee, right? You don't go to the referee and say, referee, you should only be a referee for the Lakers. Okay, every time we foul the Lakers, they'll call it every time. When the Lakers foul us, they won't call it every time. You don't want someone to dictate winners or losers. That's not the government's job. Because what if the government decides, hey, I think we want you to lose. It's in our best interest as the government not to have you have guns. It's in the best interest of the government for us to control your health care. So then if you ever say anything, if you make a dissonant opinion, you dare disagree with the government and people who are in the government, and we'll just take your health care away. Then we'll ostracize you from society. Social credit score. We want to give a metric to monitor how in line with the party, in line with the government you are. If someone's responsible for you, they have authority over you. That is the truism of life. You're essentially a slave. This is why I say socialism is slavery. Let's hit at this desirability point, because I want to talk about, this book of mine that I like to reference, and I'll highly recommend it, The Politically Incorrect Guide to Economics, right? It's not a very deep read, but I want to talk about like an example of something that sounds desirable, right? Because liberals, Democrats, leftists, they swear up and down that the government creates jobs, right? If the government creates something, it usually causes inflation. And here's an example why. This is an example from the 80s, and I'll just run through it real quick. In general, it is entrepreneurs, capitalists, employers, investors, and business managers, the capitalist class, that are the sole source of job creation in any economy. Let me stop right there. Is that a true statement? Yes or no? Now, government created jobs. What is that? Because remember, government do not produce anything. Government is merely an administrative endeavor, aka you manage something that's already there. Government don't create anything. You try to enforce rules, you try to enforce laws, you enforce standards, fine. But it has to be in the consent of the people. End of the day, you're not, at the end of the day, when you're in government, you're not our leaders. You're our representative. Hey, we can't do these things. Hey, we don't want to manage this stuff ourselves. We don't want to self-govern. We reallocated some of our power to you so you can work in our best interest. That's what a government's supposed to do. So then if a government says, hey, we want to take away your guns, that is not representative of the people. Because at the end of the day, government is supposed to be the servant of the people. But in regards, you cannot pick winners or losers. Because at the end of the day, if 100% of people vote and then you're making arbitrary laws, oh, we need to help black people make it in life, so we're going to have equal outcomes. And this is where the sports analogy hits so accurately with Thomas Sowell, and why I like to use sports analogies. Just because you ain't shooting at the same percentage points as Stephen Curry doesn't mean something's wrong with the game. It's more to do with your talents, your abilities. You can't shoot like Stephen Curry. So why do you feel entitled to have the same outcomes as Stephen Curry? Freedom has a price. The price of freedom is accountability. The price of freedom is autonomy. And in autonomy, that means, hey, when you fail, it's your fault. It's due to the decisions and actions you made. That's the cause of your failure. That has more impact on why you failed than some system. And this is why I try to get through the black community. People who live in the victim mindset. But it's part of Marxist language, socialist language. Because their point of socialists is to breed discontent in a system. They want to tell you, hey, the system's unfair because of X, Y, and Z. Because they don't have any deeper understanding of how these outcomes actually open, or these people do not want to believe that it is their fault that they're in the positions they are in the first place. And this is what socialism is so alluring for a lot of entitled people, in my view. Governments do not create any job at all because they must first destroy jobs and potential jobs by commandeering resources from the private sector with taxations, borrowing mandates, and the creation of money out of thin air via the Federal Reserve Board, which controls the nation's money supply. All governments can do is reallocate the kinds of jobs that exist. Here's an example given by this economist. When the government takes, say, $100 billion out of the pockets of taxpayers and spend it, then yes, there are jobs created. Where all that money is spent, that is what is seen. What is not seen are all the jobs that are destroyed or that do not materialize in the first place because all the money we have taken from the citizenry to be spent by politicians and government bureaucrats instead. This is the problem with centralized government, because government believe in bad ideas all the time. And the argument is, who is better at managing resources? The people who are producing the money, or the people who are merely managing the money because they were given a task by the people to manage the regulation, national security, the rules of the game? Raise the minimum wage. People who have no idea how to run a business is sitting here trying to dictate businesses how much they're supposed to pay somebody. When you don't get paid what you're worth, you get paid what you negotiate. That is the rule of capitalism. And if you believe you're not getting paid fairly, you start your own ish. But they don't even notice the trade-off that a business owner takes. They don't understand the risk that a business owner takes when they start a business. Regardless if the business does well or does poorly, you have to pay your employees. Your employees, what they pay for maximizing their income, they get with job security. They get with income security. Because regardless if they sell, they get paid based on hours work, while the entrepreneur, the capitalist, only gets paid on the results. Good year, bad year, you still got to get paid your agreed upon salary. But you want to raise the minimum wage. Make it make sense. Look at California. I can give it another antidote because all this stuff doesn't make any sense, right? For France, for instance, they had to raise the minimum, they had to raise the age of retirement because Social Security is not unsustainable. If you lower it, you're going to destroy the system even faster because the government is not capable of managing all these things. Building 1 million affordable homes. How are you going to go about building those affordable homes? You already don't have the resources. And this is the funny part is because here's wisdom. This is wisdom. The human desire is infinite, but your money and resources are finite. That means you don't have enough resources to go out here and do all this grandiose stuff that you want. Raising the minimum wage will create less jobs, will increase unemployment for the younger and less qualified populace in your country. It's going to be harder for someone to get their first job. But they don't see it because it sounds desirable. Ask California. California raised the minimum wage for pizza drivers to $25 an hour. All their jobs got lost because the cost was too high and the business could not sustain it. So then the business had to close because cascade effect. You're looking at the desirability of the policy, but you don't look at the feasibility of the policy. How much money is this business owner making out of this person's per hour? Let's say this business owner makes $20 per hour off the labor of this driver, and he's willing to pay the driver $8 to $12 an hour so he can get a healthy profit margin. Now, this driver wants to demand $25 an hour minimum wage. California does it because end day when you negotiate, it's what I'm willing to pay for your service and what you're willing to take for your service. So if you want to go mow my lawn and you say, hey, I'll do it for $25, and I try to haggle you and say, nah, I think you can do it for 15, you're saying, no, it's not worth my time to do it at 15. Have a nice day, sir. That's how capitalism works. But how socialism works is, no, I went to the government. Government says you have to give this service for $15 an hour. The dude's going to say it's not worth me doing it at all. I'm going to close my business. And this is what happens with minimum wage. But people on the left don't seem to see that. They seem to want to live in fairy tales. They seem to want to live in this world of imagination, like things don't have cause, like things don't have any trade-off. Life is about trade-offs. And every other profession, we understand this. If you're an engineer, you understand what I'm talking about. If you're an economist, you understand what I'm talking about. Not these Castilian economists that tries to pretend that the government can do no wrong. No. Life is about trade-offs. When you make one decision, you deny another decision. When you marry one woman, you deny the other woman. That's trade-offs. But the left don't seem to understand this point. And then they don't want to take in consideration the impact of their policy, their government-loving policies, right? Here's one I wanted to talk about for the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve is one of the biggest, like, libertarians. That's one thing I agree with the libertarians. Like, we got to cut the government administrative state down a notch. Like, smaller government, not bigger government, because why are we incentivizing? Why are we giving the government more power when it have shown throughout its services that it doesn't solve any of the problems that the department was initially created for? I gave an example. Department of Education, created in the 1970s. Before the Department of Education was created by, I think, Jimmy Carter, we were first in education. After the creation of the Federal Department of Education, we're now 24th in education, probably even lower. Make that make sense. So we were first in education before the Department of Education was created. And after you create this department, the quality of education goes down? Huh? It goes back to my point about the government creating jobs. You're just reallocating resources and you don't know how to reallocate the resources effectively. This is why central planning never works. It's like, do we want competent leadership or we don't want competent leadership? Someone made the argument, I think, online, is that we're not sending our best in Washington. And this is the result. This is why. Because we got a bunch of people that'll tell us what we want to hear and not what we need to hear. You need to hear we need to balance the budget. You need to hear, hey, the government can't solve all your problems. It creates more problems than they actually try to solve. You need to hear the worst thing the government can say is, I'm here to help. That's what you need to hear. But that's not what people want to hear. And that's the problem we have in our politics. That's the current incentive that we have in our politics. And this is what creates the fall of nations. Let's take a look at this clip.
Times create strong men create easy times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. Success breeds entitlement breeds laziness breeds victimhood. And I think that that's where we are right now, but then the victimhood gives you hard consequences that give you hardship that require you to become scrappy again to be able to overcome that hardship. A quote that's often wrongly attributed to the founder of Dubai. It's actually, I think it was an American. My grandfather rode a camel. My father rode a camel. I ride a Land Rover. My son rides a Mercedes. My grandson will ride a Mercedes, but my great-grandson will ride a camel again. There wasn't one rise and one fall of ancient Rome. There were many rises and there were many falls. If you never get past that cycle of recovery, there is one time where it is the final fall. So it has been, and so it will be with our American culture as well. I don't think this has to be the one, but we're only going to get out of that cycle if leaders in different spheres of our culture step up, from entrepreneurs to parents to presidents. And I think that we're in a moment where we could use people in each of those roles stepping up to fill that vacuum.
And I think we're in this cycle of politics where I'll call it the awareness cycle. Like, people are becoming aware of some of the cracks in the armor, some of the narratives that the media has perpetuated openly in our country, in the public psyche, about, oh, Biden is not incompetent. Biden is mentally there. And then this act of them pretending like they just like, oh, we're first to report that Biden is mentally unfit, maybe mentally unfit for office. When people if you track the polls, people have been polling on this for years. Conservatives was making videos about how he was wandering, looking lost, looking feeble, Conservatives been talking about it all the time, but we get just brushed aside. Oh no, disinformation, misinformation, right? That's what the left love to use, their word salad there. We created entitled people. We created weak people. And now we're going through hard times. And then we'll be shocked like we're not human. And this is why it's important to study history. Because those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And we're repeating history. All this information, we got Google at the palm of our hand, but we don't have that intellectual curiosity. And that's what's stopping us. Because we got no excuse. We got all the resources in our hands. There should be no point why someone should be ill-informed or duped by the mainstream media. Because many people in our country, and this goes to us, the voters. This is the voters' fault. Because if we were a more informed populace, the kind of politicians they putting in front of us will never make it into office. They actually have to be smart. They actually have to be competent. But you get what you vote for. You created the incentives, American people, but that's where the change relies. And I think this is our cycle of recovery. If we change the American voter, if the American voter was more competent, if American voters understood the feasibility of a lot of these policies, we would get better politicians. We'll get politicians that actually solve problems and not just give us sound bites, not tell us what we want to hear, not tell us how desirable their policies are, but they can actually articulate how feasible their policies are. And Vivek represented that for me, but America didn't agree with me there. So we got Trump, who executed. He's a proven product, right? He gave us some of the outcomes we want. But I think Vivek would have been the candidate that took it even further. But hey, I'm patient, right? Change happens slowly. That's something I acknowledge wholeheartedly in this video. I'm sorry I went on this long rant. I wasn't supposed to go on this tangent, but I felt like I needed to get that off my chest because I'm just tired. I'm tired of people just pushing the desirability of their policies, and they're pushing unpractical solutions that many people are not really thinking deeply about how that is actually executed in reality. But I digress. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you agree with me, disagree with me? I'd like to hear all your comments in the comment section below. I'll be interested to hear what you guys have to think on this topic. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.